Jennings. I'm sorry, but he's across the street doing his newscast.
Jennings is primarily a television performer, but he also does a daily radio stint.
This is Peter Jennings, ABC New York, with the latest news from ABC Radio. In the top of the news, a cold-blooded killing, decision on airstrikes, rebuttal from a Union chief. In a moment, the details.
Hail Caesar! Hail Cleopatra! Hail Caesar! Hail Mark Antony!
Jennings often chuckles at the contrast between the razzmatazz of this highly commercial newscast and the quiet reliability of the CBC National News, which his father, Charles Jennings, read each night a generation ago.
Now the news. Another raid against North Vietnam today by American and South Vietnamese planes. A key bridge knocked out 60 miles inside North Vietnam.
When I was 9, Father went to the Middle East to represent UNESCO. And while he was away, the children's department of the CBC came to me and said, would I like to do a half-hour radio broadcast every Saturday morning on CBL? And they paid me $25 for a half-hour show. And when he came back from the Middle East, his only reaction to the fact that I was doing this program, he was very pleased, but his only severe reaction that I recall was immediately phoning the CBC accounting department saying, you're paying my son far too much money, and cut it down to $5. And it was called Peter's Program, a title which I have abhorred, ever since I grew up.
Go.
You've been listening to the latest news from ABC Radio. This is Peter Jennings, ABC, New York.
Jennings. I'm sorry, but Mr. Jennings is in Toronto today.
I don't think that Canada is Bush League. I have never thought that Canada was Bush League. I did not leave Canada because it was Bush League. I left Canada for one plain, simple reason, that Canada did not offer me what I needed at the present juncture in my career.
During this 36-hour visit to Toronto, he'll have long talks with old friends, make 2 TV guest appearances, and attend to some business.
I was in Mississippi one morning. We had just been chased by the Klan. At 8 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call from Jesse Zussman, the director of television news. And he said, we're going to do assignment for you. And I said, great. I said, I just want to get out of Mississippi. I said, we're from Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, the West Coast, anywhere. You want you to take over 6 o'clock show? Dead silence. 15 seconds of dead silence. I said, no. I said, I came to the first one. I want to be a correspondent. And they said, all right, the promotion will be that you will be the only traveling anchor man in America. Young, vital. I'm young, of course, but I'm not so sure how vital I am anymore.
Friends and fellow broadcasters shoot scores of questions to Jennings about his new life in New York.
How do you like being called a glamour caster? I hate it. Where did that start? Dennis Braithwaite, Colin Globe Mail. He's never met me, never talked to me, which is fine. You can come to anything you want. I'm sensitive to bad press. I read down the press has been good. Press has been very good. It's excellent.
Peter Jennings, for those who may not know, and there must not be too many people.
No. He's Elwood Glover's modest guest on the CBC's luncheon date.
Was it your boyhood ambition to always be in broadcasting?
Without question, it was. And it worries me now because I think that if I hadn't been into it, I couldn't have done anything else.
Are you ever afraid?
Constantly. Constantly. Not as afraid as most people, I think, because I have 2 things going for me. One enough that I'm young enough if I blow it, I can go back and start all over again. The other thing, and there are a couple of Canadians working for ABC, and there are a couple of Canadians working for NBC, and there are a couple working for CBS. If we blow it in the United States, we can hustle back across the border to the bosom of Canada, and this appeals to me. As I remember, he was someplace in the South.
Jesse Zussman, ABC's director of TV news.
No matter. And said, Peter, I've got a new assignment for you, and yes, sir. And I said, why don't you come back and take over the 6 o'clock show? And I gather he was startled, and he said, you're kidding.
Back in New York, Jennings lunches with his producer, Walter J. Pfister, Jr., and Ron Hedford, an Australian who is ABC's chief cameraman in Southeast Asia. They talk about the trip Jennings hopes to make to Vietnam.
The Frenchmen in Vietnam arranged to have themselves captured by the Viet Cong, Toronto. Two to have themselves captured by the Viet Cong.
That's fine, but how do you get the film back?
Oh, you get your story, and then you're right.
You mean it's official Hanoi film that's shipped out of there?
You Americans have such a terrible trouble. You can go anywhere. And Ron, in Australia, you can go anywhere. We'll go to Hanoi for you. Ron, everybody who's come back from Vietnam has told me one single solitary thing, that we're losing the war badly. Yep, I agree. I do agree. I was often mistaken for an FBI agent. I used to wear a sort of a dirty old raincoat and had a sort of ordinary face. And I, of course, enhanced the image because I kept putting my hand on my left rib cage as if I were seeing that my pistol were quite properly in place, you see. And I just stood there the whole day, and I listened to these chaps talk, and I never said a word. And then I found that these guys began to plot against the newsman. And they started to say to one another, well, isn't these niggers we're interested in, but boy, we're going to get the newsman. I know this is a bit bad, so I better warn my crew. So I finally left the group, and I went back, and of course, soon they discovered that I was a newsman and not an FBI agent. Two of them, the whole mob of them came tearing down the street after us. Right in the main street in Massachusetts. But two of them, the one in particular, I mean, was the longest damn knife I've ever seen in my life, and he stuck it right up against the stomach of the cameraman. And I persuaded very easily, and we left.
We're still a little flexible today because of the tornadoes.
At 2 each afternoon, Jennings meets with his producer, director, writers, and graphic artists to plan that night's Jennings show in detail.
They also have film coming in from Grand Rapids and night stuff from Toledo and some daytime stuff in Elkhart and Crystal Lake. So Toledo might be able to...
We are currently the third network, the smallest network. This is the place of opportunity. At the other two, the stars are built in, the salaries are high, the work is preordained, there are lots of assistants. Here, I like to tell our people that if you can only do one job, you're no good to me. You've got to be able to do three. You've got to be able to write it, read it, report it, etc.
If we use Toledo-based stuff, it'll have to be on a switch basis.
I suggest we maybe try the library.
Well, we're not using the right thing anyway. We might as well get some film. Well, I think we ought to use the right thing, and I think we'll have a feed, Chicago feed something in on the NSA period and supernova. Okay. After you give the total, the rough total, then we ought to say...
I it like this. By any definition, tornadoes, twists, and cyclones mean two things, destruction and death. The death toll in the Midwest continues to rise. It's now in excess of 200. The injured, 2,000. The destruction and damages in excess of millions of dollars. Okay, now.
Then I ought to say, you ought to say we're going to, yeah. I kid him about being a Canadian many times, and matter of fact, during the first couple of weeks when he said schedule on the boats and some of the other words that he came out with, I was a little worried, but now I'm used to him, and I think it adds a little touch, at least the other night. One of the great names in American history, Appomattox, is mispronounced, and I fell through the control room floor. We repeated the show for that reason, and at which point he mispronounced the name of an author immediately following it. Now, this is one of the hazards of being a Canadian in American television, but I respect his talent, and he respects my background in American television. So we get along very well. We haven't had any real fights yet. Toledo, Ohio, Jim Rudes, R-U-D-E-S.
I make $40,000 a year more than I did in Canada. After all, this is one of the three top jobs of its kind in American television. I don't think it's as big as Cronkite's or Humphrey Brinkley. I must protect him against his friends back home. But then it could be, and probably will be, if he survives and makes progress. No makeup out of the eyes. I don't really care whether my hair is combed, every hair in place, because that's terribly unnatural. And I think people, young, smooth-faced looking people on air, I think the public finds them rather dull. And a boss of mine in Ottawa once said to me, he said, Peter, what you really need most of all in this profession, he said, are a few lines in your face. And he meant, spiritually and physically. And so I won't let the makeup man make up underneath my eyes, because I begin to develop, just very slight sort of 27-year-old bags under my eyes, and I think, you see, I'm beginning to look a little more distinguished, a little more convincing, a little more like I know what I'm talking about.
Like Bert's got his gardening.
Well, Bert's going to be a little late today.
You start making up nightlights now?
Yeah, I think you're handsome.
All right.
I get a lot of mail from young people. I get a tremendous amount of mail from people in the South who don't like my views about integration. Much to my horror, I get a lot of mail from homosexuals. I get mail from older people. And then you get smash notes from strange, sick women. One lady in Chicago, she's an evangelist, so she claims. I get almost a letter a day from her, and have ever since the show went on the air. I'm now doing a show that has about, I think, in the neighborhood of 20 million viewers. There's $1 million budget that rides, in essence, on these shoulders, because I'm the guy that people look at every night, and if they don't like it, they're going to turn it off. Because the competition is fierce. Every time you turn around, the 50 guys want your job.
Want to rehearse now?
All right, yes, I care of that.
Usually kills slightly more than 200 people a year. More than this number died within 10 hours yesterday as tornadoes swept over the dark spring sky, grabbed the Midwest and shook it like a lit toy.
When I first started the show, I was very embarrassed about not knowing a lot of things about America. After a while, I stopped being embarrassed. If I don't know something, I just ask.
Well, yeah, thickness.
What I got on 2 or 3?
Hang out on 2 or 3. Going to start it over again, Peter. There we go.
People will sit down and want a father, and they should tell them the news. And they're certainly not going to get that here. But if they do want somebody who's aggressively interested in what's happening in the world, and I think shows it, those are the people we're hoping that will tune in and watch our program.
I had to cross the border before people thought I had any talent. Heavens to Betsy, I have no more talent now than I had 6 months ago, whether it be a lot or a little.
Tell him my roll cue will stay the same, as it is on the script. Not the way I said it.
Unlike what he said.
Rehearsal over, Jennings and sister make last-minute script changes in preparation for airtime.
10-second roll, so we can't take the 10-second roll from the... How long is this? VTR?
Oh, I don't know, 50 seconds. He just thinks it would be safer if you were on camera for 10 seconds. Because otherwise he has to roll out of the tape and into you. Sorry? Yeah.
Position, please.
10 seconds. Rather make it simple. You're the man.
All W. Go on with it. 3, 2, 1. Up 3, kill him.
Good evening, everyone. Tornadoes usually kill slightly more than 200 people a year. More than this number died within 10 hours yesterday as tornadoes swept from a dark spring sky, grabbed the Midwest, and shook it like a limp toy. There was different communities were hit throughout the night. The largest was Toledo, Ohio, where the sister slammed into a housing project at bedtime. We go there now to give roots.
This is the tornado of 100 miles.
The tornado respected nothing after hitting Toledo in 50 games farther east. where the small town of Pittsfield, Ohio just isn't there anymore. Here's Tim White.
Yes, Pittsfield, Ohio was here. A dozen homes. Here it is kind of grocery store. Last night, it was swept away in bed. On the 50th, 22 July, 8 were killed. Most of the survivors required hospital treatment. I have started outstanding. If this call was better now, we're happy. We're going to look at what is going on. That's in pretty bad. Standing on something under the weather. 10 seconds out. 5 seconds not free.
By any definition.
The worst show in weeks. But Jennings gets no soothing words.
We couldn't have done one much worse, could we?
The name of the city is St. Paul.
Instead, a complaint. He slurred the name St. Paul.
1 minute.
And then comes the order, repeat. Jennings' show goes live to 17 stations. 92 others get it by tape. But if there's a big news break, or like tonight's big technical trouble, then the whole thing is done live a second time, with only 1 minute between shows.
What sort of order are we going to do it in?
Fellas, listen, man. Tell me if you can't repeat it. All right, we can do it. 20 seconds to add. All right.
We've got a commercial to do that.
10 seconds. 10. All right, quiet, please.
Good evening, everyone. Tornadoes usually kill slightly more than 200 people a year.
Jennings so enjoys his work that his time off is measured usually in hours, seldom in days. This night, he and his attractive Canadian wife, Valerie, an artist, entertain other Canadians, other ABC couples, and other artists.
I dislike intensely conceit in other people. And I think I am conceited. And it bothers me. I make endless attempts at being humble and being the quiet individual in the corner of the room. And I guess I've resigned myself to the fact that I am always going to try to be the center of activity, not necessarily the center of attention.
You know what? No, I walk on. Any
and still admire the humility in other people. It really bothers me when people say that he is conceited. And yet what I really have never been able to communicate to people is that when I tell them something about myself, I'm wanting them to share it. I am not blowing my horn. Because I like to hear things about other people. I delight in hearing of other people's success. Yeah, let's admire each other. I believe strongly in the mutual admiration society. I admire a great many people, and I have no hesitation in telling them. Hey, man's a damn fool if he doesn't like admiration.
What I'd like you to do is just to shoot people on the face. I want some wild shots of him, of the two officers.
But Jennings would sooner report than relax. Next night at 10, he meets his crew at Broadway and 72nd Street to film a report about violence on the New York subways.
In the early weeks of the show, I traveled every weekend. Now I travel the occasional weekend. I had this trip to Europe for Early Bird, which was tremendously exciting. We went over and did the show live for 10 days. In Paris and Rome and London, and just traveled around Europe. I'm afraid that the one area in which it really hurts is in my home life, because I don't see very much of the inside of my apartment, and I don't see a great deal of my wife. But at this point, let me first stress that the pace which other people say is killing is not killing to me. I just happen to like to work this way. So as long as I'm healthy and I'm hardy, and as long as I'm learning something, and as long as I'm running like mad to catch up with the competition, then I'll work like it.
10 seconds. Quiet, please.
Violence is not a problem peculiar to any one particular area of the country. Some places they overcome it, others they don't. One of the places that is trying is New York City. Last night I took a ride on a Manhattan subway.
I don't think he'll burn himself out because he's kind of unboundless energy, but he does work too hard. I think that this kind of energy and enthusiasm transmits itself to people who are watching. They know that he's interested in what he's doing, even if he doesn't have the years and years of experience that some of our competitors have.
I'm fascinated by everything. There's nothing in life that bores me except the tail. I cannot stand filling out my income tax. I cannot stand paying attention to the fact that I owe the grocer money. But to meet anybody else, anywhere, anytime, to go anywhere. This summer, it killed me. I'm going to go to Moscow. I desperately want to go to Africa. There's just too much going on in too many places that I just daren't miss.
He's a likable guy. I don't think he gets angry the way most of us do in this business. This will come later. He'll get to be an insufferable bore as success climbs up the tree with him.
This is Peter Jennings, ABC New York, with the latest news from ABC Radio. I like to be recognized. I think anybody who doesn't like to be recognized is a damn fool. And I like it when I walk down the street and somebody says, "That's Peter Jennings." I like to see my name in print. It gives me a sense of exhilaration. I want to reach the point where Walter Cronkite or his counterpart at that future date will say, "Peter Jennings is a good news correspondent. He is a good communicator. He is a good broadcaster. He is thereby, as a result of all he's been able to get a hold of, is a good human being." That's terribly important.